Hey crazy truckers! Today I'm gonna show you a little trick that I came up with to improve my pronunciation in English. I will explain you how I realized the problem, how I came up with a possible solution, and the solution itself. As I know you are busy people with little time and even less patience, I have set up chapters in this video for those of you who want to go directly to the trick, or rather the exercise. Just be careful not to have a heart attack. On my first visit to the United States, I realized quite early that one of the main differences between Spanish and English when it came to pronunciation was mainly the vowels.
To be or not to be.
Vocalizing in Spanish is relatively simple. We have 5 vowel phonemes, A, E, I, O, U, which corresponds to 5 graphemes or letters, A, E, I, O, U. I say relatively because for a foreigner, especially if he's an English speaker, I'm sure it isn't that simple. I still remember the problems that my friend Scott had to distinguish between drawers, cajones, and balls, cojones, or chicken, pollo, and cock, polla, a circumstance that, as you can imagine, gave rise to quite comical situations. But what about in English? Well, my friend, here's where the things got tricky. Because although English has 5 vowel graphemes, just like in Spanish, these graphemes correspond to approximately 20 phonemes. That is 20 different sounds for the same 5 letters, 3 times more. And although that difference might not be as noticeable in other languages, I bet still exists quite often. What's the problem? Well, that means you have to do very strange things with your mouth, things that you're not used to do, things that are learned and automated when you are young, such as walking, riding a bike, or switching gears in a car if you're driving a stick. And that takes a while to learn if you learn it as an adult. So there I was, trying to do pirouettes with my maxillofacial muscles to get them to understand me, as I explain in this other video somewhere around here. During my years as an athlete and as a track and field coach, I learned that muscle memory not only is crucial to automate complex movements, but fixing a wrong movement requires lots of extra work. Have you ever noticed that there are people who use the keyboard with 2 fingers, and after many years they get to do it at a quite surprising speeds, considering they only use 2 fingers? But they will never reach the speed of a person who uses all fingers when typing. This principle is also valid in many other fields apart from sports, music, games, work, etc. A common strategy in the world of sports is to divide a complex movement into a series of simpler movements. I also found that the problem of incorrect pronunciation of the vowels is increased when reading an English text out loud, as I am doing right now. So I came up with a little trick. What if you pronounce English as if it had no vowels, only consonants? Well, I found that the result is often more similar to how the natives pronounce it than how non-natives pronounce it. So I decided to turn it into an exercise like the ones we did in track and field to improve running, throwing, or jumping techniques. We will use as an example a funny tongue twister that says, "How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?" And this would be the phonetic transcription. Unfortunately, this is even more difficult to read. So let's go, unless you're a linguist. So let's go back to the classic Latin graphemes. Without respecting the rules of English pronunciation in Spanish, we would say something like this, which is how my mother would pronounce it, for example. O much bot boda bochuk chuk ifa bochuk kochuk bot. If we try to respect the English pronunciation rules, but we kept a Spanish pronunciation logic, we would say something like this. How much boot buda butchak chak if a butchak could chak boot? And now we are going to try to pronounce it with this exercise that I came up with to remove the vowels. Much wood butchuk chuk for butchuk kuchuk wood. Note that we can no longer open our mouth so much. That is, we no longer vocalize so much. Now we are going to repeat it, trying to introduce a few vowels. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? This already sounds a lot more like the correct pronunciation. And finally, I'm going to pronounce it again how I pronounce it. Well, at least, how I think it should be pronounced, which I believe is fairly similar to the standard pronunciation. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? The purpose of this exercise is not so much to acquire a perfect pronunciation, but to try to get rid of the automatism by which we read and pronounce English in a way that I'm sorry to say is atrocious. I hope this video helps you improve your English pronunciation, and remember, as they say, practice makes perfect. If you think this video has been useful to you, share it and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the next videos. Smell you later.
Smell you later.